Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate all the love and support you guys continue to give me here on the show, and thanks for those of you that are letting other people know about the Paranormal Portal and spreading the word. I really appreciate it. We got a phenomenal show for you guys today. I am joined by Suzanne Nikolaison, who is from Utah, and she's here to talk about an incredible experience of hers that kind of changed the course of her life. And the background to this is that Suzanne and her husband were doing foster care for pets, for dogs, that were being rescued by a group out of California. And then they had this incredible event happen, and it inspired them to start a rescue of their own with their team. So we're going to talk to Suzanne today, so I hope you guys are ready. Hey, Suzanne, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, Brent. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. You and I met at Phenomicon. You reminded me in Vernal, Utah, and that was an excellent time. And I'm so glad that you decided to come on the show and share your experience. So first and foremost, I gotta say, I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I think many of us out here are incredible pet lovers. I have a dog and 2 cats myself, and they just become such a part of our lives. But it's nice to know that there's people out there like you and so many others that extend their homes and their hearts to these animals that aren't very well taken care of. So thank you first and foremost for doing that.
Absolutely. It's honestly a privilege to be able to help these little animals, we focus on Dachsunds, but and Doxy mixes. But yeah, it's really a pleasure to be able to be around them.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated, and I love cats and dogs, and actually I love all animals, but I'm always blown away. I've had a few different dogs through the years, and their capacity for love just blows me away, even to this day. Just that deep and cherished love that they have, and it's unconditional, and I think that they're such amazing animals, and you know, as a side note, I always think, is this God showing us like what perfect love should be? You know, they just have such amazing hearts. So have you always loved animals, or what led you to first of all do a rescue?
Yes, we had dogs when I was young. My dad had a Samoyed, but it didn't work out. They were going to be hiking companions, and the Samoyed would sit on his snowshoes, and so he couldn't go. So when my daughter was little, I wanted to have a dog with the family, and my husband had grown up with Dachshunds. So I had a reminder on my calendar to keep checking the local shelter for a Dachshund. Because I'm like, okay, this is the sure way in. You know, my husband likes Dachshunds. It's how good a dog. So, and it did turn out. He went and saw the dog. He was the first to see him, picked him up, and they ended up bonding, which was great. But I wanted my daughter to be able to. She was the only child, or is, and so just wanted to have a little more family in our little group. So that's where it started.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So she rescued a Chiweenie and went to the University of Utah locally, and then she got married, bought a house, all this stuff in 1 year. I was like, holy crap. And then she took her Chiweenie with her, and I was like, crap, where's our dog? Because the first dog had passed away, older. Sure. And so then within about a week, we went and got our little Chihuahua mix. And then about a week later, we heard from a rescue we'd offered to work with, and we got a couple standard size female Dachshunds and we watched them all summer. Mm-hmm. You know, so it just kind of went on from there. And Willy was the last with that original organization. Mm-hmm. And Willy was the dog who came to us so sick, so ill. So that's kind of, we didn't realize until a fundraiser that we would want our books to be open, because the other place didn't have open books as a nonprofit. So that really motivated us because we wanted to keep doing the work to help the animals. Out of California, there I guess is a fair amount of euthanization. Oh, okay. I think that's why that group was working. They're organized there, but then working to bring them to other areas where they could get adopted. But So here we try as Rocky Mountain Dachshund Rescue to help our surrounding states. Like we brought dogs from Idaho and Montana and Colorado we are licensed in. And so it just kind of started from there. And with Willy, we couldn't stop because we were like giving him baths daily or cleaning his ears every night or, it becomes this intensity to save this little animal that loves you and that you love with all your heart.
Yeah.
It just somehow we had to continue. So sorry if that's not very.
No, that's wonderful. I think that's incredible, and it takes incredibly compassionate people to offer this kind of love and help to these distressed animals. So that's an incredible testament to you and your team. That's marvelous. So basically the story kind of centers around Willy though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go through that. How did this all begin and take us on this journey?
Shall I take you back to a couple days before when we got we were out having a family bonfire in the backyard, and it's dark, and our newer little dog Shotzi, I was trying to get some pictures of her, just family photos of selfies, and one of the photos, well, actually several, because you could see it kind of develop. So it wasn't like a lens flare, but there was something that looked like a speck on the camera that developed into kind of a flare that developed into, after like 4 or 5 things, you could see what looked to be kind of a fuzzy little dog ghost.
Yeah.
It wasn't Willy, but it was a dog. I was like, what is this? And he was coming out of the garden where our daisies and roses are, and just kind of looks like he's running out at us. And we're like, dang, what is that? That's crazy. It's like, ooh, spooky. So that was all we were thinking about it.
Sure.
And then about 3 days later, we got a call to go pick up a dog from a hoarding situation. And we're like, okay. And it turned out there were 2 that were supposed to be bonded. One was a Dachshund and one was a Chihuahua. And so we went to the neighbor's house and picked them up, and we were stunned to see Willy. He was underweight, malnourished, no fur. Just, oh my gosh, your just heart would break. And he was in this huge kennel, like huge, like for a big dog. And he was way in the back, and he's they call him, I think it's tweenie or tween size dachshunds. They're standards.
Okay.
And I guess they're mini, but they're not like the little teeny tiny ones. They're just small dachshunds.
Okay.
And so he was small, and he's in this huge kennel in the dark. We couldn't see him. He's in the garage. We're like, what's going to come out at us, And it's this sweet little guy that's just hiding in the shadow. And so it was a matter of taking him home and just beginning from scratch and giving him a bath. And then it was dermatologists and vet visits and changing his food. And he was eating puppy food to try and get calories back into him, and lick mats. And so he had skin infections and ear infections. And they talked about taking out his ear canals at one point.
Oh.
But we tried to keep him we'll clean him. We'll just, every night, bedtime is, he gets a bath and cleaning, or every other night. So, so things started to clear up, and he I think had a good few months. He was 15 when he came to us, and I think he had a good amount of time where he was healthy again, and we could see him kind of scratching his back in the grass, and we're like, yes, that's,
Yeah.
that's what you want to see as a happy boy. And his fur came back, and I guess that's it was just kind of an incredible time. And our Dachshund Shotzi, we have pictures of them snuggling, so it was, I don't know if you'd call them a bonded pair, but they made really fast friends. And I have a picture of him laying right by her with his eyes open, so he's just like, I have a friend that, and his Chihuahua supposed friend attacked him when they first got to us. We have it on our Nest camera.
Yeah.
So I was like, he's not a friend. So we he got shipped out to another foster family that we know. So yeah, so there were, and we have pictures of all 3 of our dogs together, and they were just, good little buddies. While he was with us, he was a sweet, mellow, guy.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's so incredibly powerful to bring about that change and to see them. I can't imagine, but just in hearing the way you're describing it, this poor thing came to you with a broken spirit and a broken heart, and to experience that healing and that rekindling of that life in him. That's so incredible. Wow.
Yeah, to see him from his first picture to, like, I sent you a picture of him in a blue sweater with his eyes just kind of bright, and I'm like, yes, that's our Willy. So he had other health stuff going on, but he was doing pretty good. So that was fun to see.
That is really cool. So where does the journey go from here then?
Basically, Willie had a few months where he was healthy and good, and we'd take them all for walks and doing stuff, normal family stuff. And then he started, he had a couple full body seizures. He wasn't diagnosed as epileptic or anything, but they said maybe there's a tumor in his head, maybe that, everybody's just kind of unsure. They gave us some medicine to give him that would stop the seizure when it was happening. Oh. Like once he was in the middle of it, so we're like, okay. Mm-hmm. So he only had a couple of those, and then within a couple months of that time, he, we think it was a stroke that he had. He had come in from outside and stopped in the hallway, and just everything kind of stopped working, bowels and sick, and just, so we wrapped him up and took him into the vet, and they're like, yeah, this is it. And so they put us in their side comfort room for families, and we said goodbye there. And it was just like, just so sad to say goodbye to him.
Yeah.
So we kept his ashes, and he's Willy Nikolaison, so he's, a family member.
Yeah.
So that's what happened there. And then in the next couple months, there were a couple things that were like, is that Willy? That happened that were like, I don't know. And my husband and I and our two dogs were out in the living room, and we're hanging out watching TV. And then we hear this shake, you can hear the little tags clink. Yeah. We hear it back in the bedroom, and we're like, what in the crap, And we've always called those the family tags, and it's like, okay, let's put family tags on, and then, make it a big deal. And so we heard them from the bedroom, and that's where his bed was by the side of my bed. It was one of those puffy little comfort beds. Mm-hmm. And he spent a lot of time sleeping and recovering there. And so and he would shake when he'd get up, and, and it was just like, okay, I don't know. I know people say people can imagine things and whatever, but if so, we all did. So it's
and that could be said for all of the paranormal, really. It's like, oh, people imagine things, sure. But do we imagine everything? I mean, okay, I'm willing to sign off and say, yeah, sometimes we can imagine things, but I know that I've seen and experienced things that there's no way I imagined, that they were just so larger than life and so surreal that that's what the paranormal is, is just these impossible things that are clearly possible. I think that's amazing, right?
Yeah, totally. I've had a couple other that the ones after the first one, I was like, okay, that's what Willy would do. He would come up behind me in the kitchen, and he would start talking to me if I was making, his meal, and like, hey, just kind of like not really barking at me, but like, come on, let's move it. Can I have my food? So I was like, I'm working on it. So, and he would give me a nose punch, just tap his nose on the back of my calf, like, hey, I'm here. Oh. I'm like, okay. And then he would usually start talking. So I got a nose punch in the kitchen, and I was just like, huh. And it wasn't my other dachshund, and it wasn't,
Yeah.
So it just, there have been a couple like that where I'm like, am I just imagining, things down on my leg or whatever? But that first one was like, okay, that was unique. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. And we have a friend that feels Willy as a guardian angel, so to speak, for other dogs, and like Dachshunds and Doxy mixes in particular, we're able to help. That's what our I guess board and nonprofit has set up to help. So that he helps guide them to us so we can help them some rough cases. So their Dachshunds are number 6 on the most popular AKC breeds. So that means a lot of people will, not a lot, but people will breed them and not always treat them very well. They might be stuck in a kennel during their breeding years, or so it can cause not being able to walk well. It can, all sorts of things. It can cause huge tumors if they don't get spayed or neutered earlier, like mammary tumors grow, and it's just terrible. So there's different, and then there's Dachshunds when people go into assisted living or somebody passes away or you move and you can't have a dog anymore.
Right.
That kind of stuff where we're able to assist and the dog won't have to go into a shelter environment. They can go into a home with one of us or our fosters.
No,
so sorry, what were you going to say?
I said that's very wonderful that you're doing that.
Yeah, that's a good situation. And so I guess from there, a handful of us that agreed on how to operate the new rescue got together, and everybody had their points. Somebody did the legalese and the setup of the 501c3, so we're official. And 3 of us were on the board for the first 2 years. So this year I had moved out of office, but I was the president the first 3 years. And then, and I was not expecting that. I was like, I'm not a president, but you learn. So, so we started, we've helped over 50 dogs. I believe we're at 57 or 58 that are still with the rescue, but we've got about 50 of them on our alumni page that have been placed and put in homes. So it's been incredibly rewarding to help these dogs have a new stab at a happy forever family.
That is so cool. I'm really glad that you're doing it. Again, I think it's an incredible testament to your capacity for love and caring and your team's capacity, because it can't be easy. I often think about the older pets and you see them at shelters and stuff. And of course, when people go out looking for pets, they're looking for the young little puppy or, the very young dog, because, it's a tough thing to say goodbye to these parts of our heart, and so I often, I guess, lament the fact that they're probably mostly older animals that are sitting there and will eventually be destroyed. And that's such a heartbreaker, but it's so encouraging to know that you guys are out there doing this. It's interesting to me what you're talking about, the nose bump and the shaking of the tags and stuff, because I have a theory that, and I don't know, it's only based on my own opinion or intuition or whatever, but I just think these pieces of our heart, these parts of our family, these beautiful animals, I think that when they pass, they might just stick with us. Like maybe they don't go home until we all go together, that kind of thing, like, or like you said, perhaps they take on a different kind of role and become like a spirit or a totem or something like that in our lives and help us on our journey. My mom had a Maltese, which is named Tucker. And I've told this story on my live shows several times and perhaps even on the podcast here. So it might be redundant to some of the listeners, but every night this dog would get into her bed. I mean, my mom and this beautiful dog were just inseparable. They were so bonded and so close. But every night she would go to bed. Come on, Tucker, it's time for bed. And he would jump up on her bed, and he had a ritual every night that he would kind of do like the poop circles, like when you take a dog out and they're smelling for just the right spot to do their business. That was his way of laying down. He would get up on the bed and he would do these circles and circles until he found just the right spot and then plop, and it was the nightly ritual. Well, he unfortunately got sick, had some kind of disease show up or malady. I don't remember what it was, but she says still to this day, she'll go to bed and lay down and suddenly feel the pitter patter of those little feet doing circles on the empty part of the bed. And then just plop, Like he found the
Wow.
spot, and like he's still there. And I think that it's very, very relevant what you're talking about with the nose bump, hearing the tags, because I think they might stick with us. And I guess it's, it's speculation. I don't know what I'm asking you to weigh in on this, but can you? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, when it's like we spoke about where I'm kind of doing my research on my own and different things and working with the dogs, a lot of it is done virtually on my phone or laptop. And then it's like, okay, action is you have to go get them and vet visits. And,
Sure.
but, so there's times I've seen some shadows of low to the ground things. And I'm like, are they dogs? Are they just shadows? I didn't know what I was looking at. Did I, just out of, so that kind of stuff, I think maybe they could, be sticking around. Like I really love that concept from that friend of ours about she was one of Willy's friends from the beginning. She saw him on Facebook and was just like, oh my gosh. Okay. And she was with him the whole time, checking in on him and just very kind. And so she was just like, yeah, I think he's a guardian angel. And I was just like, wow. I mean, it's a beautiful concept.
It is.
So, and that would be, we've had some really tough cases. And if he could have helped them find us or us find them, that would be absolutely wonderful. And I'm not going to say it's not happening. I mean, that would be amazing if it is. That'd be great.
Well, and I had this beautiful German Shepherd, and her name was Xena, and I didn't name her that. You remember that show, Xena, the Warrior Princess? Mm-hmm. She came named, and she was, I guess it was kind of a rescue situation, really, because she had been, she was born to this one family who was a co-worker's daughter, and her husband had German Shepherds, and they bred them, and Xena was one of their pups, and she was homed once and then brought back, and they just couldn't get her homed, and she wasn't like what do they call it, leash trained or anything. I mean, she was just very much a kind of a free spirit, I guess. Then nobody had ever really worked with her, and so I was at work one day back at my old job, and they're like, this lady came up. She goes, anybody looking for a German Shepherd? And for some odd reason, and I'd never entertained the thought at this time in my life, but I was like, yeah, I think I do. So the idea just came to me, and so I ended up going up with my brother and seeing this dog, and we brought her home, and it was really tragic. I think she was very, very mistreated, because for the first several days she wouldn't come near me in the house, and I put her on a leash, and as soon as I put her on a leash and even put any tension on it, she'd hit the ground and just yipping and yelping and stuff. And so I don't know what happened to her, but she was just I think really mistreated. Well, then she started kind of letting me touch her, and then from there on, then she went, and she was a year old when I got her, but she went into this whole puppy phase. She started chewing on everything, and she, I had to potty train her basically because she wasn't potty trained, and so we had this rebirth, so to speak, and she became this amazingly loving, warm, tender dog, gentle spirit, but protective, and so it was this incredible relationship. And I only had my oldest son Sheldon at the time, but she became his nanny. Like if he cried and she heard it, she would come let me know. Like, she would look at me and then look at his room and stuff, and so until I got there. Well, we had this long journey through life with her, several years, but then she passed. She got old. She had hip dysplasia. She lived to 14, and it was a heartbreak. It was so tragic and sad, but it really broke all of us up that she was gone. But I started seeing her in dreams, and that's a thing for me, like with loved ones or whatever. I oftentimes see them in dreams after they've passed. While I was dreaming, and I was asleep, and then suddenly I was in this field, and it was, again, when I have these dreams, they're so real. They're like super, super real, just more real than me sitting here talking to you. And there she was, and I knew that I was seeing her, and I knew that she had passed, but it was this reunion, and it was so beautiful and powerful, and I was hugging her and loving her, and she was licking me, and we were having this moment, and then And then it was weird. She looked at me and then looked back behind her in the emptiness of the field, and then looked at me and looked back, and then she started walking away. And I'm like, no, Zena, come on. I'm trying to call her like, no, you can't leave. And I'm going to get emotional just saying this, but,
Oh, yeah.
but she knew she had to go, but I just wasn't ready to let her go. And it was this amazing moment, but I think this was a real event. And I wonder, did you ever see Willy in your dreams or have any dreams like that?
I don't remember my dreams very much, so I didn't have any dreams, but it kind of those out of the corner of my eyes things.
Yeah.
I would be walking down the hall where our hallway is fairly dark, with rooms off it, so the little darker than dark stands out.
Yes.
And like little, because it's like over here at the base of the hall. I'm like, is that Willy? So, and that's kind of been on and off since he passed, just like once in a blue moon, that I might be like, was that? Or, and I a lot of times will write it off to imagination, or just, it's just a shadow, or it's like a shadow of what? So yeah, I think maybe in subconscious, when you're just not really paying attention, you're maybe open to stuff. I don't know.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. In fact, I think we're in, like, we sometimes go into these natural states of hypnosis, and our brains, when you're in hypnosis, our brains move to a theta state, which is a wide open state. And that's why hypnosis works, is because you can implant suggestions and stuff. So we do that all the time naturally. Like when you're driving and you find that you're home and you're like, I don't even remember doing it. How did I get here?
That's terrifying.
but that's a natural state of hypnosis. But I think we do that throughout our days. But when we're in that state, that I think is when we're really receptive to those kind of things. And it's interesting what you say, out of the corner of your eye, because from what I understand, and I'm not an optometrist or an ophthalmologist, but there's rods and cones. And so our direct vision uses, I think, the cones, but then the rods are what we catch peripheral, but they're very motion sensitive. And I guess it's a survival mechanism or whatever to detect movement. But I think you really have to pay attention to those things, because honestly, in hauntings and stuff, both positive and negative, that's usually one of the big signs that people say, I started seeing shadows move out of the corner of my eyes. I turn to look, there's nothing there. But I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a very valid thing. And it comes up all the time in the paranormal that people say, I see the shadows in my corner of my eyes. And then from there, if it, like in negative hauntings, it always gets worse. But, in your case, I think you're right. I think he's there, and he's just letting you know he's there, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, that, we also had a dog we fostered that was blind, and she had, it turned out, cancer in her shoulder. And it was, she'd stopped walking one day, and I'm like, okay, let's try crate rest and see if it's arthritis or something. And so gave it a day and a half. I know that doesn't seem like much, but we went to the doctor because it was just, she just couldn't walk on with her leg. So and he did x-rays, and there was like a chunk, like a bite out of her shoulder. And so he's like, if you take her home, it's you guys being selfish. You should let her go now, because it's going to go fast. We were just like, holy crap. So the bite out of her bone he's just like, it's just starting, and it's going. And so we so they euthanized her, and we have her ashes too. And so I don't know if we see Marta going around too, or just, it's just at a point you kind of have this family of dogs, the ones that have gone on and been placed, or that we had puppies over the summer. Someone surrendered a pregnant dog to us, and so they were just freaking adorable. And as they got placed, my heart's like, I want to keep one of them, but and now to see them growing up, I mean, they're not a year by any means, but they're just so cute and growing up, and you feel like family. I go and pick up one of them every other week to have play dates with Shotzi, with his aunt Shotzi. So it's like, it's just very cute. And it's, so whether they stay around us after they're gone, I would hope so. People have, I mean, that love that we're able to connect
Right.
seems so deep compared even sometimes to relationships with other humans. Because,
Yes.
like you said, an unconditional return of love to you, it's just like, oh, where do you get that? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It seems like a perfect love. And I think that's, these animals are, I don't know, they're definitely a gift, but they're also an incredible responsibility. And it's unfortunate that, in a lot of cases, I wish there was more research done into placement of animals, because unfortunately a lot of people get these animals and it's more of a novelty thing, to have a dog rather than to open your heart to one and to bring one into your family. It becomes a possession, like a shirt or shoes, and then once they get older, they're less convenience for some people, and so they end up in these shelters and stuff. And it's such a heartbreaker, because these animals, in no uncertain terms, would die for us. I mean, that's the depth and profound nature of that love, and yet these people treat them like they're a decoration, and that's so heartbreaking.
yeah, it's, we've seen them surrendered when somebody wanted to travel more, and the funny thing was that dog was adopted by somebody that wanted to travel with their dog. It's
Oh,
just
really?
like,
Oh, cool.
you're like, and we have, for our fosters and our adopters, we have like 2 references we check in with their vet, we do a home check, there's, like you're saying, because we want them to find their forever family. We don't
Yeah.
want it to be a bounce, and because we feel it's scary each time they have to bounce from foster to, to an adopter or back to us, or so it's, I don't know, I think making sure they end up with a good match, and for people to understand. I was on a Facebook group where somebody was saying, well, I've got this new dog, a new Dachshund puppy, and I'm at work and I come home and there's an accident, and I'm just like, okay, how long are you gone? And it sounded like it was maybe 8 to 9 hours the puppy had to hold it, and I'm like,
Oh,
excuse me?
yeah.
And I'm like, you can't hold it that long. I'm betting you hit the bathroom
Yeah.
in between. So it just was like, I hope people will be able to understand and have love for these little guys, and more like personal understanding, be able to feel as they would feel, maybe. It's not, hopefully not too trite to say like the golden rule, but it's, if you look at it that way, it kind of shifts things for you with your dog. Do you want to go out, if you're a short little dachshund, in a foot of snow to go potty? It's taller than you are. No, so we shovel. But it's,
I don't even go out if there's an inch of snow.
yeah, I'm like, I don't know about that. We should stay inside.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think those are all considerations, and I hope that that you are able to continue this long into the future. I do want to take a little bit of time and talk about your podcast as well. I think that's really exciting and intriguing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's called the Whispering Gallery, and it's a play on words, which I understand. The Whispering Gallery is kind of like whispering and you can hear it wherever. Mm-hmm. But the way I was looking at it was telling spooky art stories in a gallery kind of thing. So it came from when I was finishing my illustration classes, and one of my painting teachers had told us about a story in his home studio where he'd been oil painting, and there are rags that get some of these different mineral spirits and oil paints, and they're combustible. So he had a pile of rags that had started to smolder, and his dog had found out about it. And so his dog came and found him and was like, oh, hey, get over here. So the dog saved them, and he was just like, wow, this was kind of a supernatural or out of the ordinary experience for him. And it just got me thinking that I want to hear more art stories that are different and supernatural. And so just started looking into it, and I've just got a huge list still, and started another one because I'm like, well, okay, that's all there. What do I want to do right now? And there's so many things to be talked about and I want to readdress like the eyes that watch you out of paintings.
Oh yeah.
My daughter addressed that in in one of the first episodes, and cursed paintings, and so it's been really interesting digging up Yoshitoshi's woodblock print ghosts from Japan. There's just a whole lot of stories that I've been able to uncover, and like there's the Kraken, and you've probably seen the picture of the octopus taking down the boat. It's the print, and going into that and how intelligent the cephalopods are, and it's been an incredible journey of learning stuff, as well as learning about ghosts and artists like Monet. They said he showed up at one of the museums during the installation when they were putting together one of his shows. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's really cool. Yeah. And then by the end, I'm like, oh, marketing. So it was like a marketing stunt. It was like, it took me a while to figure it out. And I'm like, it's taken all this time researching, but it was cool to research Monet. But, sure. So there's been a couple that got solved, but it's been kind of fascinating.
So what about the cursed paintings? And I know of a few of them. I know there's one with like two children, and I don't remember the nature of it. And I think there's I've throughout the years I've stumbled onto several of those stories. But what do you think about that? Do you think that these paintings could actually have a curse attached to them?
I guess possibly. I would want to do more, like I think I've heard you guys talking about and kind of like a more modern approach to stuff, getting data sets and starting to track, as you get things happening, mm-hmm. or be able to find, because like one of them was houses would burn down. I think it was the Crying Child.
Yes.
So yeah. And so I don't know if that is still considered to be happening, or if they destroyed or stored them and they're not. I'm not sure why we don't hear about it right now, or
where it's set up, or they got really good sprinkler systems.
Exactly, so they could just put it down each time. There's one that was some just can be creepy, and you're just like, yeah, that could just be like. There's one, I think it was a figure screaming, and it's like, if you see this painting, mm-hmm. Kind of one of those things, if you see it, then you're going to be, cursed. I'm like, I saw it. It's like, so, okay, I don't want to be cursed, but it's also like, it's a painting. You never know, because at some points you might feel like that's really creepy, and what went into this, and there's all sorts of stories about what things are painted out of, and mediums people use, but it's, I don't know. There's a story of painting of one of the passages through the Northwest Passage when they were trying to discover a way through, mm-hmm. and they didn't make it, and so it shows like kind of the ship as a wreck, and polar bears are eating, and it's hanging up at a college, and then the students are like, you've got to cover that, because they're like, no, that makes people fail, and it caused some guy to commit suicide, and they're like, that one they think was baloney. They're like, come on, guys, rein it in. But I haven't heard that proved or disproved, I guess. Right, so that's why the look was like, maybe not. Maybe somebody pulled it a little too far.
Sure.
But yeah, people are saying it's affecting their grades, and so they cover it during their tests.
Oh.
So I mean,
okay.
I guess if you've noticed it and you've studied your butt off and you know the topic, maybe it's like, what the crap,
Sure.
What's in this?
And then there's the aspect of suggestion. If somebody says, well, this is cursed, well, maybe some part of you believes that, even if your rational mind goes, whatever, maybe there's a subconscious part of you goes, that's cursed. And then it's kind of could be a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point as well. But that's very, very interesting, because I do think that, the nature of a curse is to, basically imbue an intention into something. And it's not to suggest that all intentions are negative, but in the case of cursed things, perhaps there was an intention that was painted in every brush stroke. It's like, this, if it was painted with rage or the heart of the creator, could that energy be imbued in the object then? And like the crying child, Was that a deep sorrow and or the screaming, the screaming man thing? Was that an agony that was being released or channeled perhaps into the medium itself? And so that energy remains a part of it. Well, and that may affect certain people more than others, but I think that that's fascinating. And I think it's potentially a very real thing, just as in the same vein as like haunted dolls and things like that, or other items that could have curses, or there's, what is it called? There's a term, and I'm trying to think of it. It's not an egregore, but it's a darn it, I almost had the word, but it's basically a practice in dark magic to create a sentient spell, and I can't remember what it's called right now. The word is, but I've mentioned it in a previous episode of the podcast. But the idea is that it is a creation of a person, usually with very direct intent, and then that spell itself has a sentience. And I think in a lot of terms, in a lot of situations, like perhaps satanic worship and stuff would be doing that, where they create these sentinel spirits, so to speak, like an egregore. But it's I almost had the word.
It's not like a golem, but it's like a separate.
Right. It doesn't necessarily have a physical form, but it has an energy and an intelligence, and can be very potent and dangerous. And so I think that perhaps these cursed paintings may be inadvertently created, just due to the state of the artist or what they were going through, or maybe very intentionally created to cause problems for whatever reason. It's there's a lot of people in this world that are just fine to sit back and watch it burn. Unfortunately there's too many of that, but certainly I think it's a very real phenomena. But I just hope that those of you listening will go check out the show. Again, it's Whispering Gallery Podcast. And where can they find that?
It's on most of the, are they called podcatchers, or most of the programs out there that you can, like Spotify and
the platforms.
Apple, Amazon.
Okay, good.
If you're on it, it should be on it, or you can listen online.
Okay.
And I'm rolling it out onto YouTube. Slowly, getting there.
Good. And with your nonprofit to help you out, if any of our listeners want to help, how can they do that? How can they send donations or whatever to what you're doing?
It's RMDR, as in Rocky Mountain Dachsund Rescue, .org.
RMDR.
Or you can spell it out, or you can make it small, like the RMDR.
Okay.
And that's where you can go. We're on Facebook and TikTok, and I guess you can donate. We do that through Venmo, PayPal. Zephy does credit cards, and we also, if people want to volunteer or foster or adopt, you can find links on our website and to our applications. Mm-hmm. And you can also volunteer, like we have a transportation thing coming up where we're helping Midwest Dachshund Rescue out of Nebraska. And my husband and I are taking the Salt Lake to Boise journey for this dog that has hydrocephalus. It's the swollen head. Yep. So the dog needs to make it to Bend, Oregon. So we're they're trying to find volunteers along the way to make the journey, so that not one person has to do all the mileage. So things like that, transportation, or even temporary fostering, for a week if somebody has to go out of town, or before a permanent foster can take them, that sort of thing. So there's many ways, to events we go to be at the booth, lots of ways to get involved. So, and we try and have a community inclusive thing, so that we're trying to make everybody feel part of the team.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I really, really enjoyed talking to you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences, your ideas, your theories, and letting us know what you're doing. And once again, please just know that I'm so impressed with what you're doing. It's such a necessary thing, and I hope that people will help you keep doing this amazing work.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad we got to talk today, and I hope we can talk cursed paintings and other things again in the future.
Yeah, me too. I'd love
that would
to.
be
I'd
fun.
love to continue that discussion because I think that's incredibly fascinating, and I'd love to pick your brain more about it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So yeah, and thank you for your good wishes on the rescue too.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.